The 9,000 British troops are responsible for the greater part of the Shiite areas, as well as 1,200 kilometers of the borders to Iran, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. The British try to keep the peace without raiding any private homes or sniping at the population, but that could change at any time. We ask how they prepare for a possible Shiite uprising. The British reaction to such a suggestion is rather skeptical. Their numbers are not nearly adequate to handle any real unrest, and their equipment is outdated, out of repair, and often makeshift. The Land Rovers are always breaking down, and the tanks are museum pieces.
Defence isn't cheap, but it's not seen that way until it's needed. So in an emergency, break glass, you know.
So what are these tanks? I mean, what are they called?
This one's a 434, it's a 4.3 series, which is commissioned in 1965, so this is quite old.
And the other one?
That one's that's a BMD, which is a Soviet piece of equipment. That's just dumped here after the war.
One prime example of British ingenuity in a pinch. The troopers themselves built the lattice of bars around the tank as a defense against bazookas and anti-tank weapons.
Sir, we're at the Al-Hadi police station now.
The communication system is also somewhat improvised, often falling back on the local mobile phone network. But that's a security risk, since anyone can easily listen in. Even the soldiers' rifles were prone to jamming, until recently, when the British press made a scandal of it, and the defect was promptly rectified. The British forces have had experience of their own with the potential for violence in confrontations with radical insurgents. But their job is not made any easier by the faulty equipment and the lack of intelligence on the enemy and his strategies. British soldiers have shot an insurgent. Normally, the radicals would have remained hidden in the narrow alleyways and tried to ambush the soldiers. The insurgents have pulled off a number of successful attacks in Basra. The mere fact that they can celebrate in public and drive a captured Land Rover through the streets for hours reveals the disturbing reality of the situation. Suicide attacks have long since become part of daily life in the South as well. 19-year-old Lee Williams lived through one such attack. He was on the road in an armored vehicle when the attacker rammed it with a bomb-rigged car. Williams' vehicle was destroyed by the explosion, but miraculously, he survived.
When I used to close my eyes, like the night of the suicide bomber, I'd close my eyes and I'd just have pictures going through my head of him. And I could remember him driving up to the back of the vehicle, pushing me forward and exploding. I can remember all that to the day when I closed my eyes still. It's just one of those things that's going to stay with me for the rest of my life, I suppose.
Do you think these people are cowards? Are they brave?
I'd say they're very brave to do it. Very, very brave. But still, we're here to do a job and we could do without it, couldn't we?
From Basra, we head for Al-Sharamsheh, one of the main border crossings between Iran and Iraq. Iranian radicals, even suicide bombers, are thought to have entered the country here under the guise of pilgrims going to Karbala. British Secret Service reports allege that Iran is increasingly seeking to influence the internal affairs of Iraq. Given the strategic importance of the border crossing, it's surprising that no British troops are stationed here. Only sporadic patrols are dispatched from Basra. The official explanation is that the Iraqis are supposed to take over the job. A more likely one is that the British just don't have the manpower to guard the crossing. British officers with an aptitude for languages learned to speak Arabic, especially for their mission in Iraq. One of them questions a group of 18 men crossing the border. They claim to be fishermen. The interrogators will try to find out if that claim is true. Back in Baghdad, we drop by police headquarters. Like the British, the American troops just want to get their Iraqi peers trained as quickly as possible so they can hand over policing duties to them and go home. As it happens, that's far easier said than done. On the agenda for today is a joint patrol for the American troops and Iraqi police. But the city chief of police, Saddam Hussein, doesn't seem to be aware of it. He says he has to look into the matter. In the meantime, the Americans can relax with a cup of tea. But they are not tea drinkers. This patrol was agreed on long ago. Suddenly, Jaffer seems to recall what it's all about. An American officer had informed him of it, but he'd simply forgotten. But now, there's another problem. A roll call reveals that there are not enough men present to make up a patrol. The American commanding officer makes a snap decision to occupy the police station until enough Iraqi policemen show up to go out on patrol. But as morning turns into evening, flaws in this strategy appear. The next shift also fails to collect enough policemen for a patrol. The Americans dig in for the long haul.
See, you freaking started. Oh, he's got his body on.
At least it's an opportunity for the younger GIs to get to know some Iraqis close up. The new day doesn't bring any improvement. On the contrary, at morning roll call, 12 policemen are still missing. The Americans give up. By now, they're so exasperated that they don't want the upcoming confrontation recorded on camera.
Hey, tell them to slow down a little. Flood.
The American forces have somewhat better luck with the Iraqi army. Enough men show, and the patrol is on.
On Power Station, we're starting to move up Cemetery Road.
But they run into an ambush. They come under fire from an unseen assailant, and there's friction between the Americans and the Iraqis.
Hey, Flood, give me a syrup. Flood, what's going on?
Operations Head Sergeant Dave Collins goes on the offensive and orders the troops to advance.
Hey, go up to the next alley. Get up to the next alley. Get up to the next alley. Go. Go. We gotta get. Hey. Give me a syrup. Roger. Hey, we're on moving up to Power Station. They're saying it's a PKC. Hey, spread it out. Spread it out. Spread it out.
An Iraqi soldier is shot and wounded. The situation turns critical. The Iraqi troops don't know what to do to aid their injured comrade. Sergeant Collins reports to headquarters and requests assistance. The Iraqis are jittery and want to open fire. Collins has to hold them back.
Only shoot if they have weapons. Okay. People live here, so they're gonna move. So we can't shoot at everyone. If they're posing a threat to you, then you can shoot them. But otherwise, don't shoot at them.
The Iraqi officer assures him that his men will follow instructions. Now they've located the insurgents' hideout. Sergeant Collins tries every way he can to keep the Iraqis from rushing in. It may be a trap. But it's no use. They all storm into the house at once. Sergeant Collins struggles to get things back under control. He calls for the interpreter and gives orders to secure the street outside.
Security over here! Up high! Up high!
These are the men who fired on the patrol, the Iraqi soldiers insist, but there's not a shred of evidence. The suspects plead, "We're just old men. We haven't done anything. Have mercy on us." This is everyday life in Iraq, 2 years after the cessation of hostilities.
They need to spread out. They need to spread out.